Well, this is the one trade that you can't live without. This is proacttraders.com, and this is our bread and butter trade. Happens multiple times a day, sometimes 20 times a day across the 9 major currencies. So I just want to show you how it sets up here. And first thing we do is this is our royal flush screen. And what traders are always looking for is one trade setup that they can do that will happen every day. Well, unfortunately, that would require that the market do the exact same thing every day, which it doesn't. So we've developed trade setups for each type of market, whether it's trending, reversing, or ranging. However, all of those markets have one thing in common. That is that momentum enters the market, even in ranging markets, to hit a target. Sometimes in a ranging market, the target's very, very small. So that's really the difference there. So this is called the RF1010 trade, and it requires 2 parts. It requires that we have this up here, which we call the trigger, and it requires this chart right here that we call the gatekeeper. And basically how it works is very, very simple. When the gatekeeper sets up, and what I mean by that is this is not a trade setup, this is what tells you you have an environment conducive to a good trade. We need to have what we call a blackjack. That's this candle right here, and you see it has to have the power to turn the moving average from green to red, or continue the trend, as in this case staying red. And just to give you the example over here on the left, you can see that we had a market movement down, and then we had a blackjack coming up, and it has the power to turn the moving average from red to green, and that sets up and say the environment is good for an actual up move. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to match that little diamond on the top. The diamond tells us that the momentum is entering to the downside. We have a red moving average that tells us that the market is moving down. Up here in the top we have what we call an HMI, which is a horizontal momentum indicator, and it indicates whether there's enough momentum in the market to drive the currency to the target. And the last thing we need is we need candles that are below this moving average. And so you can see right here at 4:30 in the morning, we had the HMI red, we had the blackjack with a red diamond, we had a red moving average, and we had red candles. Red, red, and red. That gatekeeper says you are now free to find a trade. So once that occurs, then we go up to this chart, which is called the trigger. And on this chart, what we need is we need to be away from the desert. And the desert is the area that we define between this moving average and this moving average. Okay? When you're inside these moving averages, you don't know if you have more buyers and sellers. But when you're outside the moving averages, you know that you have more sellers if you're below them, or buyers if you're above them. That's the whole key. And so we can go back here and in the past, and you can see that we had more buyers here. Okay? So we would only be looking for buys in that situation. And over here, once we go below the moving average, we're only looking for sellers. Okay, so I want to get this all set up here so you can see where we are on this trade setup when this all happens. So there it is. That's the first one. We had multiples during this run. There we go. So here's the exact same spot. We're at 4:20. That's 10 minutes earlier than the gatekeeper said, and we already had an arrow and a painted candle. That's a very strong sign that the market is getting ripe to move, and that's all we need if the gatekeeper says it is ready to go. However, that did not occur until the next candle. Now, at the next candle, we get these little white dots. Now, these little white dots are part of another trade setup, not part of this RF1010 trade setup. However, they tell us that money is entering at the big boy level. That's what it means. So we know that this trade setup has a lot of potential to go to a target. So how do we find a target? Well, we created a proprietary tool we call the HSI, which has Fibonacci's and historical support and resistance built into it. We simply click a top and we tell it we're a seller. Okay, and if we're going up, we would tell it we were a buyer. Okay, and what that's going to give it is going to calculate the supports that are in front of us. So we've already taken out the S1, as you can see, the S2, taken out the S3 here, and so the S4 is the next target down here. So when we get this trade, we know that we're looking for a target to go down here to 1.2995, okay? And we're currently at 3050. So roughly a 50 pip trade right there. So once the currency starts moving, we would enter that trade right there because the gatekeeper and the trigger told us we were good to go, and we would target that 29.95. Now this trade is set up to go for 30 pips. It's going to be 25 pips with a 30 pip stop. But when we have a target that's further than when we hit 25 pips, we'll want to move our stop and try to stay into the target. You can see we stalled a little bit there and ultimately went right down to the target, and of course that's where she stopped. All right. So this trade setup occurs day in, day out on all the currencies. It's a very simple trade to learn, happens all the time. We have a live class that teaches it every morning in the New York session from 8:30 to 9:30, and we also do it 3 days a week in the London session, and that starts at 2:30 in the morning. Both of those times are at Central Standard Time. So if you're up, just drive by, click in, and log in, and you can watch us trade this live. We're one of the few people who actually will trade live in front of you. We don't sit there and say, here's where I would have entered and here's where we would have gotten out. We don't do that. We trade it live when it happens, and you're able to watch it yourself and decide whether this is a valid setup for you. I can tell you this, our traders who trade this day in and day out would not be without this one trade, because once this sets up, it also can set up the other 3 setups that we have. If the market's going to trend, then we would end up looking for a wild card or a royal flush. And we'll just scroll ahead, and you can see that that's exactly what ended up happening. We had a pretty substantial day today. So once again, we get right over here, you can see we got other opportunities for entry, and we would be looking now for this S5 as the target. Let's see if she hits it. That's where we currently are. We're still just a few pips away from that target. Okay, I hope that helps you. Don't forget, we have live training every day, free tutorials. We have a free demo you can download, and we'd love to have you join our family. Thank you.